The Crimean sun no longer warms Russian tourists. Crimean beaches no longer attract the orcs. Delight has turned into irritation and disgust. Russians don't like the service, the prices, or the Crimeans themselves. I don't like anything at all. Ironically, before the war, when Crimea was controlled by Ukraine, Russians vacationed on the peninsula with pleasure, without any restrictions, and were satisfied with everything. But now, a vacation in occupied Crimea is a real survival quest. War has long become a reality for Crimea. Explosions, drones, fires, strikes on the Crimean bridge. There are more dangers, more anxiety. Every incident on the bridge or in the new territories reduces the number of tourists. Today, the situation with the special military operation as a whole makes the border areas and other regions of the country unsafe. It's ironic that when Russia seized Crimea, it actually became much harder for Russians to get there than when it was Ukrainian. It was difficult to get to Yevpatoria, to Crimea, so we ended up taking the train for 2 days. It took a really long time this year because we were afraid to drive. It's just... I'm even afraid to say how many kilometers the traffic jams are on both sides right now. In July, last year's record for the length of the traffic jam was broken by more than 20 kilometers, compared to 17. In the 10 years since the occupation, Crimea has gone from being the main resort of Eastern Europe to a backwater where it's not just hard to vacation, it's even hard to live. Dear miserable Crimea, beaches, gloom, filth, and decay. So locals and tourists who came to the peninsula are sharing their impressions of the resort season. Ah, an utterly empty beach. Truly empty beaches. See how the Russian Federation is profoundly and dramatically changing Crimea. The very entrance to the beach, and there's not even enough room for a single apple to fall to the ground. It's completely deserted and utterly devoid of people. There's not even room for an apple to fall. Again, I'm not gloating, not at all. Russian tourists complain that vacationing and shouting "Tagil" in Crimea has become very uncomfortable since the arrival of the Russian world. The picture shown on TV doesn't match reality at all because much more was poured into propaganda than into the development of the occupied peninsula itself. The biggest complaints from vacationers in Crimea are about the lack of infrastructure, conveniences, and tourist services such as cafes, showers, toilets, and cashless payment options. Other everyday inconveniences, internet outages, and navigation system failures. The publication Crim.Reality reports that there are problems with ATMs on the peninsula. And with cash registers in stores. A video from Crimea on Instagram about how to follow the navigator when it shows your location incorrectly has gathered 300,000 views. Of course, it's frustrating when you spend 3 days traveling in a stinky third-class train car and then can't even find a decent place to use the bathroom. Despite all this, prices in Crimea remain sky-high. Even with the lack of proper service and amenities, a vacation in Crimea is ruinous for the average person. 3 to 5-star hotels for a family of 4. And in Crimea, that's Yalta or Alushta, it costs about 100,000 to 500,000 rubles for a week's stay. Naturally, the majority of tourists choose ultra-budget options for accommodation and live off instant noodles. Fruits, souvenirs, and excursions are already unaffordable for the patriotic population.
And this is starting to anger the locals in Crimea.
They complain that it's almost impossible to make money off Russians because only the poorest people come. The wealthy don't go there. It's the middle class and let's say the poor. Well, why be shy about it? The middle class and the poor. Restaurants are basically empty. People are looking for cheaper options.
Do you have a bag for nausea?
No. We've been saving up. I offered it to you honestly. Evgeny, that's all there is to it. Everything has been said and concluded, leaving no further points to discuss or elaborate upon. The girls asked if it was possible to pay in another way. Tension between Crimeans and Russians is constantly growing.
The homeland harbor turned out to not be so homely after all.
The locals are shocked by the culture and habits of the newcomers. And the tourists are convinced that all Crimeans owe them because Putin annexed them as a favor. It'll get warmer in a couple of days and hopefully everything will get better. And so they broke it.
And of course, no one will clean it up.
He threw it there.
Onto the beach?
Yes!
Propaganda is doing everything it can to show how Crimea has flourished under Russia.
But it's getting harder and harder to do that. Even the most zealous bloggers complain that people refuse to discuss life on the peninsula. Just now, I walked from the bus station all the way to the hospital along Pervomaiskaya Street, and only a minimal number of people agreed to give feedback. Many were at work, and some responded rudely, simply because they don't like bloggers. Someone said, "We're sick of these bloggers."
It's obvious that people are simply afraid to speak their minds about the occupation and about Russia on camera. Right now in Crimea, there are more cops and FSB agents who have come from elsewhere than there are waiters. Aren't you afraid of the counteroffensive?
We support Ukraine. A Russian vacation in Crimea can be described as expensive and miserable. But the orcs still flock to the peninsula in droves because they have nowhere else to go. Europe is close to many. Turkey is too expensive, and Sochi is even pricier than Turkey. So they have to stand in kilometer-long lines just to catch a glimpse of the sea, even if the sea smells like the Russian world. Right here, there's some kind of strange river flowing out. Let's get closer and film it. Look at how much trash there is. There are bags lying around, napkins, cigarette butts, bottles. It's not even clear what's going on here. I wish the Sanitary and Epidemiological Service would check this river, and that all the sewage flows right into it. The influx of tourists to Crimea has increased because of the fuel oil apocalypse on the beaches of Krasnodar Krai. Here it is. A true oil superpower, where the population is literally swimming in oil.
But there's a catch.
Wow.
That's something.
People are swimming in fuel oil!
Look, in Anapa there's fuel oil and no one swims there.
Here there's fuel oil and everyone swims. Friends, fuel oil is everywhere. What should we do? A child is screaming somewhere in the fuel oil. The fuel oil slick has reached Crimea too.
But on TV they said it's okay to swim. And for the common folk, that's the most important thing.
If they're told to drink fuel oil, they'll drink it without even chasing it with anything.
There is fuel oil on the big rocks. Not much, but it's there.
So you can get it all over yourself, stain your swimsuit, and so on. The kids are swimming in the sea, it doesn't bother them. Terrible service, high prices.
But that's far from the biggest problem for Russian tourists. There's a war in Crimea. It's a peninsula.
A frontline region.
How bad must life be in Russia if they're going on vacation to a war zone?
Shelling and air raid alerts are scary, of course, but what can you do? The beaches aren't going to puke on themselves. They have to go, risking their lives. Life is so great in Russia under Putin. It's gotten so much safer to live.
Sarcasm?
Ukrainian drones have become Crimea's calling card.
The orcs come back from vacation to their backwater towns and brag about photos with explosions in the background.
Beautiful. The police are looking for them, for videos with burning oil depots in the background. 2 girls and a guy filmed a video to the popular track Raspberry Dawn. In the background, the Rosneft oil depot was ablaze, damaged after a drone attack.
This year, there's a new attraction for Russian tourists in Crimea. No gasoline.
It's either completely unavailable or only the most expensive brands are left. So vacations are becoming even more expensive.
They say there's no 95 octane gasoline for 3 days at a time. I even had to fill up with 100 octane.
But many people just turn around and leave. Now it's not only hard to get to Crimea, it's impossible to leave unless you want to hitch your Lada Vesta to some donkeys. And the situation is only going to get worse.
Crimean authorities are preparing to distribute gasoline using ration cards.
And Gauleiter Aksionov finished things off with his relentless optimism. He stated that the gasoline situation will only improve after the end of the special military operation. A significant portion of fuel is delivered by road transport. After the end of the special military operation, a number of issues will disappear, and accordingly, everything will return to its previous level.
Good joke. Russians won't understand why things got worse, more expensive, and more hostile in Crimea after Russia arrived.
Why the peninsula no longer brings joy, and people only go there because they have no other options. Yes, because Crimea is no longer a resort, it's a military base now. A powerful strike on Crimea. At night, the annexed peninsula was attacked by the Ukrainian armed forces. The strike hit a railway station in the Jankoy area. The attack was confirmed by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and local residents are sharing footage of the attacks.
Additionally, Ukrainian channels are reporting a strike on a military unit in Sevastopol. NASA satellites are recording fires on the Khersonis Peninsula. Moscow has turned the peninsula into a staging ground for attacking Ukraine. It has packed it with tens of thousands of soldiers, as well as depots of equipment and ammunition. Shelling of Ukraine is carried out from Crimea. The supply of the occupation army goes through Crimea. Naturally, Crimea has become a legitimate target. And naturally, all the peninsula's resources are not going toward developing infrastructure and tourism, but toward supporting a massive military force. Idiots! Attention! It so happens that all the important military facilities are located right in the resort areas. Sevastopol, the military airfield in Saki, the Kerch Bridge, and numerous radar stations on the southern coast. Everywhere you sunbathe, you can get burned. I didn't want any of this crap.
Well, whenever we arrive, there are attacks everywhere.
Look. Yeah?
What's over there behind the mountain?
There's probably some kind of base there, right? Yeah, that's the PMO. Everyone's in position, damn it. Fucking city. As it turned out, that much hyped Tavrida highway was built solely for the convenient and rapid transfer of troops. That's what the Crimean Bridge is for, too. And the Kremlin understood perfectly well that because of such policies, the residents and visitors of the peninsula would be in danger, but they never cared. What's happening is a forced measure. You're an imbecile. The demographic situation has also changed radically. Since the occupation, hundreds of thousands of Russians have moved to Crimea for permanent residence. There may already be as many of them as there are native residents. And it turned out that the newcomers are mentally and culturally completely alien to the Crimeans. As a result, social tension is growing. There can be no talk of any hospitality.
So, on July 29th, a video of a conflict appeared in online publications and on social networks in Crimea.
In particular, the conflict involved people who had come to Crimea from Chechnya, members of the Russian National Guard, and presumably local residents. All the complaints from Russian tourists about the terrible vacation conditions sound ridiculous, because they deliberately went to sunbathe in a war zone. What kind of service can you expect when drones are falling nearby? This year, the occupation authorities reported a record influx of tourists. This means that vacation conditions will become even worse and even more expensive, but the people of Crimea won't benefit from this at all.
A vicious circle.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.